Okay. Good morning. Hope everyone is well. Baruch Hashem, we are back to a live shiur on Zoom. Baruch Hashem. Today we're learning Perek Beis of Shekalim. Today's shiur is Lila Nishmas Aaron Nachman Simcha Cohen Yishal Mordechai Ben Shepsel Bracha Service Small Leib and Bida Moshe Ben Yosef. May the Neshamas have an aliyah. And before Shlema for Arab Basleya Chana Pesel Basyat Yisrael Ben Rachalea Rachel Bas Pesel Zoda Rabbi Yitzchak Marisha Chaya Bas David Bela before Shlema So Shar Chal Yisrael. Here we go. Perek Beis is a short parak. It's only 5 mishnayos. So we started talking yesterday about Shekalim, and we said that they had to collect Shekalim even from Chutzlaritz. The people who did not come up from Oli Bavel, they also need to send their shekalim, or if they live on Eivra Yarden, like Reuven and Shimon and Chatz, Reuven, Gad, and Chatz Menashe, they also had to give their shekalim. So Mishnah Al is going to talk about that. Perek Beis Mishnah Al Mitzaref shekalim the Darkonos B'nei Maso Hederech. Townspeople who are sending their shekalim to Yerushalayim, they are permitted to change silver shekalim into gold coins called darkonos, so as to lighten the burden of carrying some. Back in the day, that was before they had Zelle or any of the online or checks or any of the online banking apps. So you had to send money up to Yerushalayim. You had to send the whole cold, hard bag of cash, coins, and those get very. They would silver coins for gold coins, which are much more valuable, and you can carry much less of a burden, of a weight. So after these darkonos, these golden darkonos, was arrived in the Beis Hamikdash, then the treasurers, the Gizborim of the Beis Hamikdash, would convert them back into shekalim at the expense of the Beis Hamikdash. So Mishnah teaches us that even so, it's permitted for the townspeople to convert their shekalim into their konos to ease the burden and cost of transporting so many coins to Yerushalayim. Because you can imagine, there's a currency exchange to cash your gold coins into silver. But there's probably a more expensive cost of transporting all the silver coins up to Shalim. So get the lesser cost. Kishem Shayu Shofaras Mikdash, just as there were collection chests in the Beis Hamikdash for people to put shekalim into. Kach Hayu Shofaras in Medina. So too, there were collection chests in Yerushalayim itself, in the city. For those Jews who were tummy and were usher to enter the Beis Hamikdash, they were able to put their shekalim into the collection chest, the pushkas spread throughout Yerushalayim. If the townspeople sent their shekalim to the and the coins were stolen or lost along the way, then the halacha is that that the messengers must swear to the owners for not regarding the shekalim. So the question is, who owns these shekalim? If the truma for buying new karbanos had already been taken from the shekalim in the Beis Hamikdash before the theft or the loss occurred, then the shekalim were already property of the Beis Hamikdash at the time of the theft or loss. If the shlichim and then the shlichim must therefore swear to the treasurers that they were not negligent in guarding the shekalim. They do not. Therefore, the tax will do not need to contribute a second time, since the shekalim are considered to have reached the Beis Hamikdash once the truma has been taken. In Lav, But if not, if the truma had not yet been taken from the lishka in the base of English at the time of the theft or loss occurred, then the shekalim are still considered the property of the townspeople when they were stolen or lost. Nishbaim the bnei ha'ir, then the messengers must swear to the townspeople that they are not negligent in guarding the shekalim. Bnei ha'ir shokin tachteya. And then the townspeople must then contribute the new shekalim in place of the missing ones, since their contribution never reached the base of English. So now we talk about what happens if the shekalim are eventually found. If after the townspeople contributed a second time, the shekalim a second time, that the missing shekalim were found, or the thieves were turned down to the base of English, Elu ve'elu shekalim, then both these and those, both the original shekalim and the replacement ones, are considered to be shekalim and are the property of the base of English, even though there's one set that is now extra. And all in the shana haba, the additional shekalim do not count to the townspeople for the coming year's collection. Rather, they still have to contribute next year, like they did this year. Well, not this year, but they still have to contribute the regular amount next year. Okay, Mishnah Beis. Hanar saying shkalo sheklo l'chaveru l'shkol al yadav. Someone gave a shekel to his friend to act as his agent to contribute it to the base of English for him. Ushkalo al yadei atzmo. The agent went and contributed it for himself instead. If at the time he contributed the shekel to the shekel, the truma had already been withdrawn from the truma had already been withdrawn from the base of English chamber and the lishka of the base of English, so that the friend's shekel is already considered mikdash property, and the agent has committed me'ilah by using hektish property, his friend's shekel, for his own benefit. If, however, the truma had not yet been withdrawn when the agent contributed his friend's shekel, the friend's shekel for himself, then the agent has not committed me'ilah, since the shekel was not yet considered mikdash property. He was merely required to repay his friend for the shekel he took. Hashoko sheklo melis hektish, one who contributes his shekel from mikdash funds, meaning that he forgot they previously was makdash this coin to mikdash for Perek bias, and he used to pay his shekel obligation. In this truma b'kara behema. Then later, when the truma is withdrawn from the mikdash chamber, and an animal bought from those truma funds is offered on the mizbeach, mal, then the man has committed me'ilah. Even though me'ilah generally occurs as soon as the person removes a hektish item from possession of the base of English and uses it for himself, here the shekel is not removed from possession of the temple. It was merely shifted from one purpose to another. The halacha in this case is the me'ilah does not take effect until the money is actually used for that other purpose. Therefore, only after an animal is purchased with shekalim fund and offered on the mizbeach is he guilty of me'ilah. The third case, if one paid his shekel with ma'aser sheni funds or his shemitah funds and then realized his mistake, yachol connected. He must eat the food of a corresponding value to them. He does this by taking a shekel of non-hektish money and declared, let the ma'aser sheni funds or the shemitah funds, wherever they may be right now, be redeemed onto this money. This removes the ma'aser sheni or shemitah kedusha from the money he gave for shekalim and transfers it to the new money. He then uses the new money to buy food, which he treats with the kedusha of ma'aser sheni or shemitah produce. Mishnah Gimel. One who puts aside small coins or a small period of time for his shekel. Usually he collects them in like a pushka or a cookie jar, like a little jar of coins. And he says at the time, at the time he begins saving them, that these will be kodesh for my shekel. Saving up these coins to get to the shekel. When it comes time to give the shekel, he sees that there's more than a shekel's worth of coins. The Shammai Omer the Shammai says that the surplus of the money, even though he was marking it goes to the collection chest based on this for voluntary offerings, for voluntary Kabbalah Sibor. Mishalo Oman Mosra Cholin. Mishalo says the surplus of the money is non-actish and goes back into the guy's pocket. Sha'avi mehesh distinctly, but if at the time he began putting aside the coin, he said that so it said that he was doing so in order that he will bring his shekel from them. Shavin Shemosran Chulin. Then they all agree that the surplus of the money is non-hektish, and even in that case, Bisham agrees that he can keep the rest of the money because he said, "I'm going to take." He meant to say that I'll take from this money. I'm going to save it, give by shekel from that. He didn't give the whole thing. Similarly, if someone saves, of course, to purchase an animal for a chatas, and at the time they began saving the coins, he says, let these be for buying a chatas offering that I'm chayav to bring. And when he buys the korban, the animal, he discusses he has more money than he needs. Shavin Shahamosar Nadal. The Shammai still agree that the surplus of money remains hektish and is used for voluntary kabbalah tzibur. But if when he began setting aside the coins, he said he's doing so in order that it will be the chatas offered from them, that all agree, and both the Shammai still agree that the remainder of the money is chulin, and just like we discussed by the shekel, like he can use from that money for his korban and the rest of the money. It all depends on his language. Okay, I'm a Rabbi Shimon, Mishnah Dalit. I'm Rabbi Shimon, my Shekalim l'chatas. What is the difference between? Rabbi Shimon says, what's the difference between Shekalim, according to Bishilo, the extra coins he set aside are non-hektish, and the chatas offering where the extra coins are hektish. Shekalim yesh them kitzvah. The difference is that Shekalim have a limit. The person may not contribute more than a shekel. Therefore, he certainly did not have in mind to be marked more than a shekel's worth of coins when he starts saving. So the extra coins remain non-hektish. The chatas and the kitzvah, whereas the chatas are limit, one may spend as much he desires on the animal. Therefore, we say that he intended to be marked all the money. If there's any money left after he buys the animal, then the extra money goes for kabbalah tzibur, the davas. And Yehuda Omer Af the Shekalim Ein Lehakitz. So Rabbi Yehuda says this, but even the Shekalim have a gish that told them. Shekishalu Yisrael Ben Agola Ayu Shoklin Darkonos. When Klal Yisrael came back to Yisrael from Babel after 70 years of Galus Babel, in the times of Ezra, they used coins from Madai called Darkonos as the basic unit of currency. Therefore, for their shekel contribution, they gave half the coin, half of a darka, which is equal to one seller. Later, after the collapse of the Parashamada Empire, they switched to using slime as the unit of currency, and therefore they gave a half seller or one shekel each, which is the lower standard. However, still later they switched again to using coins called tevayin as a unit of currency, and then the people wish to contribute dinar, a half of a tevayin for the shekel However, the Chachamim refused to accept a dinar for the shekel obligation, as it was worth less than the half shekel of the Torah. At any rate, you see that the shekel obligation has no set limit, and in various history, the Jews gave more than the Torah's half shekel to fulfill their chiyuv. How then can Shimon say that the shekel obligation has a set limit? So he defends his explanation. Amar Shimon said, "Afal pichen kulan shavet." Even though it is true that the amount of the shekel, the amount of the chiyuv of shekel is not completely fixed, nevertheless, everyone's share is always equal because no matter what the currency is, no one is allowed to give more than half. But half of chatas, regarding the chatas offering, it is not so. Zem may be pesela. For this person can bring an animal worth a seller. Zem may be shtayim. This one can bring an animal worth 2 slime. Zem may be peshelos, and this one brings an animal worth 3 slime. You can spend as much as you want on this korban, and there's no uniformity between the two. And finally, Mr. Hay, most the surplus of money set aside from the shekel, from the key of shekel, is non-hektish, is chulin. Most are the surplus of money set aside for buying the 10th of the eva flour used as chatas. Most are kine zavim, kine zavas, and kine yeladas. The surplus of money set aside for buying pairs of birds for the karbanos of zavim and zavos, and for women who gave birth, bechatos v'shamos, and the surplus of money set aside to buy animal, the animal, the korban chatos, and the ash, and the korban ashram, moserehen the dava. The surplus of money, all these cases is placed in the Beis Hamikdash chest marked Karban Nedava, voluntary communal offerings. This is the general kosh who l'shem chadas l'shem ashama. Anyone that comes to pay for a chadas offering or an asham offering, then the surplus is considered a voluntary donation. And most are okay, fine. Most are ola liola. The surplus of money set aside for korban ola is used to buy another korban ola. Most are mincha mincha. The surplus of money set aside for a mincha offering is used to buy another mincha offering. Most of the shlamim, the surplus of money set aside for a shlamim offering is used to buy another shlamim offering. Sounds pretty basic. Most are Pesach shlamim. The surplus of money set aside for korban Pesach is used to buy a korban shlamim. Most are Nazirim, the surplus of money collected to purchase korbanos for Nazirim who are poor is used to buy korbanos for other Nazirim who are poor. Most are Nazir Dava. But the surplus of money of an individual Nazir who set aside money for his own korbanos, and some money left over is placed in the mikdash chest marked Karban Nedava. Since it was designated for a particular Nazir, it cannot be used for other Nazirim. Most are aniyim aniyim. The surplus of money collected for poor people in general is used for other poor people when the need arises. Most are ani, also ani. But the surplus of money collected for a specific poor person is given to that poor person. Most are shvuyim. The surplus of money raised for pigeons, shvuyim for redeeming captives, is used for other captives. Most are shavoi, also shavoi. But the surplus of money collected for redemption of one specific captive is given to that one captive. Most are hamesim l'mesim. The surplus of money collected for kivrei mason, for the vayas, is used to bury other dead people as well, to people who are too poor to afford their own burial. Most are hamesim l'yoshav. The surplus of money collected to bury a specific dead person who's too poor to afford his own burial is given to heirs. to his family. Rabbi Meir Omer says, most of Hamis Ye Munach Ashiyavu Eliyahu. That the surplus of money, according to Rabbi Meir, that's collected for a dead person must be set aside until Eliyahu Navi comes, passes judgment on the undecided point of law. He's he's uncertain whether it can be assumed that the deceased forgoes his honor on behalf of his heirs. He therefore rules that no one may touch the surplus money until Eliyahu Navi settles the issue. Right? And the last opinion, Rinasan says, most are amazed, boning low nefesh al kibra. That with the surplus of money collected for a dead person, they built a matseva upon his grave. Because he hopes that the deceased certainly does not forgive his dishonor on behalf of his heirs, and therefore it must go to honor him by building a matseva on his grave to perpetuate his memory. Okay, thank you for joining us. We'll continue tomorrow with Perek, hopefully at 9 o'clock. Have a wonderful day.